I've spent in the dark. It's been so long.
It's so special. And so, yeah, when was the last time you watched this movie?
I think I tried to get my kids to watch it. At some point when I still had agency over them. But it's been a lot. It's been a hot minute. There was we did a screening in London, like I don't know, on the 10-year anniversary.
Okay.
But I think the movie's like 30 something.
30. We're celebrating 30 in 1995.
Oh Jesus.
Sorry to rub it in. But I didn't ask this question to anyone in the audience. Clearly, there are fans, because many people are dressed up when you see it afterwards. Who has not seen this movie before? Raise your hand. Look at this first.
We had so many choices tonight.
Oh, we indoctrinated them. Come on, you guys, you loved it, right?
Notes.
Oh, so good. All right, so take us back 30 years. Like, tell us about like when you got this script, where you were at, what you were thinking, and when you thought of this script when it came to you.
Well, yeah, I had at the time I had a girlfriend who was a partner that was working in the casting office. So I was in New York.
Yeah.
And
New York film, New York cast, right? Pretty much.
Yes, very much so. And then at some point they needed somebody to read. And I love this story because it kind of like, you have no idea in this industry, in this world, where things are going to come. So they were like, they need somebody to read with the women that come in that were auditioning for Angelina's part. And so I spent 2 days with Ian Softly and the casting people. And at the end of the 2 days, and look, I knew in that moment, like, I would have fun and I would be charming, and I would, there's other parts in the movie that I was definitely interested in. But at the end of the 2 days, Ian Softly is like, we'd like to make you a test deal to fly to LA and audition for Johnny Lee Miller's part. I didn't get that part. But in the interim, they gave me Serial Killer, which is hilarious now.
I mean, yeah, thinking too how you then went into the Scream franchise. It worked,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you started in reading. So what did you think of the script? Were you just kind of like?
Well, look, at the time, it's so great. So those computers were cutting edge. Yes, the whole movie was like very new. But they set us up, we were in New York, they set us up with New York online accounts, which were just chat-based rooms. And they gave us computers that you could plug into your phone line. And you could talk to people. And I remember distinctly trying to do really pornographic things while typing. That's the early days of the internet when there were no images. But this idea of like, you were anonymous in these rooms in New York City in the 90s. So so there was no such thing as like online. The internet was a brand new thing.
Yeah.
It was before AOL. It was dial-up. So and that and there was such Ian Softly, I think, did an incredible job. Like, it's still relevant. Like, I think the movie's still really lovely. And he did all these things. Like, the soundtrack was cutting edge. They just did a huge, at the Royal Albert Museum in London, they did an expose of the costumes.
And you just see a costume change. It's so vibrant.
That last sequence, they're so beautiful. Like Angelina Jolie is like, that was her second film, and you just realized that she was about to take over.
Right. So everything was cutting edge. I mean, I think that's what's really interesting, though, specifically about films in the 90s that were dealing with tech, right? Because it's pre-Y2K, but there's data, like how to get data felt really, I don't know, intense. It was very physical, like these floppy disks were like held the key to everything. It was a good time.
Yeah, and it was that thing where it was like a new world. It was a new tapestry to tell stories.
Yes.
Right. So nobody had ever sort of ventured into this world before. So these, it's just like this. It's just a new background for the same 7 stories.
And it's clearly lasted. like that background has still affected.
I think they're all drunk, is what I think.
Well, we also need movies to drink too. So there's that. Just thinking, you mentioned some of the other cast members, but also just watching this film again, it's such an ensemble film, and yet the ensembles are also in different worlds, right? There's kind of the hacker crew,
Yeah, sure.
and then there's kind of the cops or the bad guys, however you want to like phrase it. So I'm so curious, what was it like for you, just like being with the crew that you were around? Obviously, like Angelina.
Yeah,
you had
it was great because we were young.
Yeah.
You know, it was that thing where you're like young in Hollywood and you're working, and so that was always fun. You know, we run rollerblades, which was always exciting.
Did you have to do it?
Yes, they had to teach us. Those things were brand new. So I remember being like Central Park and everyone padded up and like everyone's falling and I'm like, I look great. You know, they've got these incredible shots of these beautiful people rollerblading, and then you cut to the actors and they're like falling in between takes. And, but yeah, we shot the first part of the movie in New York City.
Yeah.
And then the second part of the movie we shot in London, which was, I'll never forget, it's a funny story. We get to London and, you know, we'd all been working together for a month. This is when movies would take like 3 months.
Right.
You only had one camera that had film in it. You had to change the film every 3 minutes. I mean, it's fucking such a different world now. But getting to London and Johnny was like, let's go to dinner, I'll take you guys out to dinner. And we went to dinner, and afterwards we went to his flat. He's like, why don't you meet my buddies, this is Ewan McGregor, Mr. Jude Law. What's up, dude? I'm like, you know, it's the future of English cinema. And you're like, you know, you're just kids. I mean, we're all just sort of kids wandering around in London. But it was great. And, you know, Angelina and Johnny fell in love in the movie, and sort of watching those two lose their minds at each other was interesting in its own way. And
I'm sure.
it was great, though. It was fun.
It seems like a great camaraderie on set. Which we then must talk about costumes and sets. Because the cyberpunk, like, kind of, or like the cyber cafe, excuse me, is beautiful. Like, I want to hang out in there. It's so great. We can talk about that set, but I also really truly need to know about the costuming, which is also, talk about the set first, and then I'll ask you.
Yeah, the set, we were at Shepperton, so that in itself was like, is a very iconic London stages that had, you know, all these famous. Star Wars was there, yeah. So that in itself was fun. And look, he made these choices. He made these, like, you know, in terms of hacking the mainframe at the end, that was like a whole soundstage of, like, you know, as they move these cameras and all of that. Like the floating of the camera was totally new. The way they lit up the data was new. Nobody cares. Do you care about any of this shit? It was also 30 years ago. And I was like, well, this is cool.
Offset agrees.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
If I knew now what I did back then, I would have stolen a lot more stuff. I had the rollerblades still, put them on sale.
So you didn't hold on to the glasses?
No, I didn't hold. I think I have that stupid beeper. I still think I have the beeper. And then there was like, you know, the funny thing is that actually you make all these crazy choices, right? You make these choices based on. Certainly when I was young, I had a choice for everything, you know, and I still do, but I give them away way quicker now. But back then, like, there's a line in the movie where it's like, yeah, his mom and dad, he's never in the same house twice, which is why the entire movie, he has this toothbrush, because he doesn't know where he's going to spend the night. And so I still have the toothbrush, and he has this little, I have this doll in the movie that I used at the Ren Fair at my job between my first and second year of acting school is I worked at the Renaissance Fair. I don't know why you're laughing. Best job ever. Hey, good gentles, know you. But the story is that my oldest, her name's Addison, she's 22, she's about to graduate USC, she works at that same Ren Fair every year. So she goes back to upstate New York and it's the greatest summer ever. But yeah, so I had Jeep with me the entire film. So I had a little doll in the movie that's like, everything was like, you make these beautiful choices as an actor.
Yeah.
And sort of get lost in the cut sometimes. And watching it now, it's just like, it makes my heart sing.
Oh, it makes all of our hearts sing. It's so good.
But, I mean, it's such a weird thing to spend so long in film. You see yourself as this boy, this little full of hope and no kids. It's just like this little sweet artist who luckily found his way, under the screen, and it's like it just makes me so happy.
And I'm so glad you did, because what's beautiful about cinema, right, is that new people that saw this, like your personhood at that time, right, is now inside all of us that watch the movie, and then we carry it with you, and then we pass it on to our friends. I don't know, it's really beautiful. So thank you. I do want to then ask, as I was mentioning, I stopped myself because I wanted to hear about sets, and I gotta talk to you about the costuming. Were any of those choices yours, or what was the costume process like for this film?
Not really. I mean, everything. Look, you always have like a choice when they put it on you in some capacity. It's not me. Like that Lou Reed shirt. I was like, yeah, I would wear it the whole movie. And that jacket is funny. Like, they're it's a fun cosplay. Serial killer is a fun cosplay. So I've seen it a couple times. I've watched somebody try to put it back together. But yeah, you don't really have. It's not really. They give you these things to plan, and it's such a, they lay it out in the beginning. And especially for an actor like me, I think that they're like, when you're a character actor, you get to make really extreme choices on the edges of films. Yeah. And, at that point in my life, I would just chew every scene I got in front of. Even like, where everything is like so arched and like, we're gonna die. And it's just so heavy-handed, every line. It's just waiting for the camera to find me so I can just eat it. And it's like, there's just like, you just see this muscle in action in every fucking line. I'm doing this weird thing with my voice. I have to go back. I had to go to therapy. I don't know. So the great thing about being this character actor is that you get to they let you do weird things on the side of all the pretty people. So they cast you in weird shit, and you're like, yeah, more, because they'll look at me. Never cut away. Yeah, I had long hair at the time, and I was like, what if we just did it in like cornrows or like, and the woman, the hair people now, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name. I don't remember my own children's names. They were like, what if we did a plait, and what if we added pieces on the back? So, yeah. I don't know if it's amazing, but it's definitely extreme.
It's iconic. How about that?
I do think the funny thing is that this movie, when it came out, was a complete flop. I mean, Ian Softley, I think, is one of the most incredible directors back in that period. He had done Backbeat, and he had done that Martian movie. I forgot what it is off the top of my head, but he's a very talented director. And when the movie came out, this was a big swing, and it didn't do well. And it wasn't until like Apple stores opened up, and I would walk into an Apple store, and a kid would be like, "Oh, serial killer." It's so weird that this little movie that nobody cares about is like resonating with this whole generation. And the sort of the further away you get from the '90s, the more nostalgic it is, and the more sort of people love it. And that I think at some point you guys were cheering when they were rollerblading in Central Square, like or Times Square, or what is it, Central Station.
Yeah.
And I was like, why are they cheering? What are you doing? You're so weird. You're all so weird. But there's something funny about. Look, I will say that in my career right now, I'm having this really. You'll all be happy to know I'm having this incredible resurgence. And I'm such in my career where I was like, hey man, I may never work again. And I was faced with that. I think I had a long period of time where I wasn't working at all, and I wasn't getting a job, and I've told the story again before, but I'll just say it again real quick. You know, at some point somebody offered me a job on Dancing with the Stars. And at that point in my career, I was calling my agent, my manager, twice a day, literally twice a day, to see if anything was happening in my career. And the reason was because I defined myself by success in this stupid business. That the man I was being defined by the jobs I was getting. And I was just, I was a kid, I was lost. And all I ever wanted to do was act. Like, all I did in my high school, all the way through, was act. And so when I wasn't getting an opportunity to act, I was just sitting there waiting to act. And, at some point my agent said, why don't you go donate time? Why don't you go volunteer? I was like, I can't fucking volunteer. I don't know what my next job is. And there was just such a weird, empty desperation. And within that, I started to get closer to rock bottom in terms of, it was after Scooby-Doo, and like, this is me, like I'm making big movies, and I've made it, and I'm gonna get all these chances, and all those chances sort of dried up after Scooby-Doo, and I had this moment where my father-in-law, and we were struggling, and my father-in-law said, if you quit acting and sold pharmaceuticals, you would make $1 gazillion because you're very charming. And I was like, I've done like 20 movies. I'm in a bit of a lull, but I'm raising these 3 kids. And in that moment, I didn't know, I didn't know which way to go, but I knew it wasn't to go sell pharmaceuticals. My father-in-law, God bless his heart, was like being sweet, but it was like a really definitive moment in my life. And I was getting this offer for Dancing with the Stars, and my agent was like, you could make a lot of money. And I was like, I couldn't make a lot of money, but this naive boy who only wanted to win an Academy Award. Like I would go line up with my little drummer friends outside the Academy Awards and watch people show up. And I was like, I'll be as far away from the thing that I wanted the most as a kid. Yeah. And so, look, we changed our lives. We sold our house, we reconfigured how we sort of lived, and I just changed who I thought I was. I was like, I'm not that stuff. I'm just a fucking actor. I'm not this thing that is, anything more than what I am. And it was a really lovely moment in my life because I was like, sort of reinventing my humanity. And then I was like, fuck this business, I'm not gonna wait, let me just do other things. And then, I've now come around the other side, and it's just a really lovely moment because I think that all the people that were in the 90s who watched this movie are now making decisions in Hollywood. It's just a really fun time for me.
But also, I might say to maybe thank you for sharing that. And I think for those of us that didn't hear, and as we're talking about rebuilding and a lot of things, that our lives take these turns, but you have an entirely sold out crowd to come to see Hacker. It's like, it's so interesting, I think, at least for me, and hopefully it is for you, I ask these questions, like hear about the time and the place and what it was like to be in it. And then it's so beautiful, maybe because I'm on the side of getting to program the repertory side of things and see people just reconnect or connect with work for the first time and see themselves in it. And it just continues on. It's really quite beautiful. And many people, and I will say we have up here, I'm sure you've been to many Q&As where they go, when this movie came out, no one saw it. Like, where were you? And now here we are where it just sells out, and it feels more relevant now than ever. Like, kind of like, fuck the system, right?
There's a version of the script that Ian Softly's trying to get made now. That is super relevant, and he's trying to get the gang back together. So, wow. I'm unavailable. I'm too famous.
There you go, full circle moment over here. I did promise the audience that I would actually open this up for a Q&A, and I mean to open it up for any questions. And maybe we talked enough, or maybe there aren't any questions, but I'd love to see if someone has them. And again, I'm going to say this now, questions, guys. Okay.
I'm taking one for the team. I love this film. It's one of my favorites. I have a hacker's tattoo. The moment when it comes to
What the fuck is that?
It's turning already.
Where is it?
It's on my ankle. I don't know.
Straight.
It says hack the planet. It's a floppy
So
disk.
good. You are so sexy.
The silly question I was going to ask for
Yeah.
the whole crowd. You were talking about choices. Was it your choice or Ian Softly's to rub your nipple at that time?
Let me know something. In the history of cinema, nobody's ever given the note. Wait, let's do it one more time. Not this idea. I see your nipple. Can you feel the nipple? No, I do stupid shit all the time. Literally all the time. All the time. And you're like, why does that stay in the movie? The reality is like, I literally think it's like, everyone is focused. Every time I've ever done a movie, the director is focused on number 1 and 2 on the call sheet. And what happens is like number 4 is over there doing, what the fuck are you doing? I don't care, do it. And I'll just keep doing it until somebody says stop. So I'll make dumb choices every single time, and then they get in the cut, and the editor's high. And then puts it, or she puts it in the rough cut, and it stays.
I love that.
I have a question kind of going back to the conversation about costumes. I love this like beautiful androgynous kind of thing that Serial has going on, where it's kind of this mix of the cyberpunk, but there's also a bit of like crust punk happening in there. And I was wondering if there were like any inspirations for that at the time that you remember.
I know. I remember. And you just said words that did not exist. Crust punk was not a thing. It was just fucking punk. But yeah, no, there's nothing really. I think that, look, I do try to bring a humanity to the things I do. Like, I just always try to be like, what is the core human in Shaggy, in Stu? I mean, there's little beats where you're like, who's the human? Which I think is really interesting. And so it's funny because watching this, you're like, oh, I remember the choice of the toothbrush because he's lost. He's a little boy lost who has incredible nipples.
All right, we have a question over here. Yeah.
Hi.
Hey!
Good to see you. I have a question. You were saying that you were like, you referred to yourself as a character actor. Like, was there ever a point in time where you didn't want to be considered a character actor?
Yes.
And how did you like that?
I'm fucking still waiting. If you couldn't hear her in the back, she said, you're way cuter in real life. That's a George Clooney joke. Yeah, I always want to be number 1. I always want to be number 1. I'll fucking go against anyone. Like, put us up against each other in the room, and I'll beat whoever's number 1. Just Hollywood is not interested in that story. I mean, do you know what I mean? It's there's a thing where, you know, I got to be number 1 in a movie called SLC Punk. I love that work and I love that film, and I was like, yeah, I can do it. But it just doesn't. Turns out it's hard to be a big number 1 in the film and television industry. I will say this, as I've gotten older, I'm 55 next week. I don't really care anymore about like, I used to want to be the biggest actor in the world. It's like, you're not a professional athlete or any artist and be like, man, I don't really care. Fuck that, man. The reason I think I became successful is because I was a driven motherfucker. Like, I was not going to be stopped. I may not be in a movie, but I'm going to do a play. I'm going to keep working. And so for a long time, I'm like, I'll beat anyone. Put me up against anyone. But now as I get older, I'm like, it doesn't really matter. I just want to do good work. And I realized that it's the journey. I really want to spend my whole life as an actor. So like whether 1, 2, 7 on the call sheet, as long as I get to do good things that I'm proud of. And I've been really lucky. I feel like, I've had really like lovely roles in my life. That whether the movie, SLC Punk is popular now, but again, this is a movie that we saw when it came out. And I just, I like the collection of my life. I'm proud of the collection of my work.
Woo!
Now that you're in super high demand, what goes
I didn't say that. I just no longer have to sell my youngest child.
now that you're a super famous actor,
Yeah.
what goes into your decisions in the roles you pick?
I don't have that many options. So it's just a matter of if I want to work or not. Look, the reality is that I do a lot of conventions that's life-changing. Like, it secures my money and I can feed my kids. I started a Dungeons and Dragons company called Vidiots and Grims. I did that 6 years ago. I just started a high-end whiskey and spirits brand where we built whiskey and spirit experiences around fandoms. I'm the day in, day out CEO of that company. We have 13 people that work for us every day. So it has to be interesting to take me away from a job that I really enjoy, which is, my whole life I didn't think I was smart enough to be a director. I didn't think I was, because I didn't go to college. I had a learning disability. I was obese. I had braces. I had a really hard time in high school. And then I found one thing I was good at. And I was like, everything else be damned. Right? And so I chased that one thing because there was adults in the world that said I was good. And it was incredible how powerful that is if you're an outsider on the looking for some kind of something to identify yourself as. And so that being an outsider and being seen was like super powerful. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. I just want to say real quick before we go. First of all, it's humbling that everyone's here in this horrific moment in this city. I just can't imagine. I didn't think anyone was going to be here. So I just want to say I'm grateful that you're here. And I just wish my love and blessings on your families and your friends. And I think the most beautiful thing we've seen in a long time is the way the city's come together and working together.